Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It has been almost a month since the Transportation Security Administration launched its new, horrendously invasive procedures for, quote, screening passengers at airports. And it has also been some time, approximately 11 days, since John Tyner made a very popular and firm statement against this kind of tyranny and this kind of molestation at the airports. Now, what has happened since then? I would like to take a look at this situation and examine what I think are encouraging developments and what I think are somewhat disheartening developments. I suppose I will start with the disheartening developments. The majority of the American people disappoint me. Public opinion polls still show, and are still proudly cited by the TSA, that the majority of Americans support these invasive procedures. And, of course, my first rejoinder to that kind of opinion would be to recall Benjamin Franklin's statement that those who would trade essential liberty for a little bit of temporary security deserve neither liberty nor security. I think this is very important to remember now, because there is no circumstance in which sacrificing freedom accomplishes anything productive except to place one under the control of people for whom your security, the security of the people in general, is not the foremost concern. For these people, power and control are the foremost concerns, and they use the image of security as a smokescreen to obtain this power and control. What is really happening is that the TSA is using these invasive procedures as a kind of psychological terrorism against the American people. And while this is certainly not terrorism of the sort that gets you blown up, it is terrorism of the sort that inspires terror in the ordinary citizen, makes the ordinary citizen afraid of his own government and willing to follow outrageous orders for fear of getting hurt. What will happen next if the American people continue to support these kinds of screenings or to be docile? Well, the Department of Homeland Security is already considering expanding these backscatter machines to more and more airports. In 2011, they hope to put in about 1,000 more, and already they're making plans to expand these machines into train terminals and even into bus stations. So those people who say, well, if you don't like these new screening procedures, then you don't have to fly. Flying is a choice. Well, yes, flying is a choice. However, if one doesn't take a stand here, then the same argument can be extended into other areas. Taking the train is a choice. Riding the bus is a choice. Getting out of your house and passing through a certain checkpoint in your car is a choice. You don't have to do that. You can just stay at home. But how limiting is that ultimately to a person's mobility, to a person's capability of getting things done? Perhaps these kinds of security screenings will one day become so ubiquitous as to turn those citizens who still have an understanding of dignity and still want their dignity respected into the equivalent of landed serfs from the feudal era. Well, certainly we must not allow that kind of slippery slope to happen. Moreover, the people who make the argument that, well, you don't have to fly, are missing the essential point. Flight is a transaction that involves private individuals and private airlines, at least nominally private airlines at this point. It is not the case that the federal government should have the ability to dictate the terms under which that transaction can take place. I am in favor of privatizing all of airport security and letting the airlines deal with the risk of terrorism. They have billions of dollars on the line. They could face potentially catastrophic liability if a terrorist blows up their airplanes. So, with that in mind, I am quite disappointed with the docile response of the American people up to this point. And this does not apply to all of the American people. There have been some, a minority, that have demonstrated some manner of resilience and some manner of opposition to these procedures. The organizers of the National Opt-out Day certainly did. A lot of commentators certainly did. The people who have chosen not to fly certainly did. But, as the TSA has proudly announced, there was no major interruption at airports during the Thanksgiving travel season. And while I have no particular desire to delay people's ability to get to their destinations, I am disappointed that most people seem to be choosing these backscatter machines, for which the health risk is at the very best unknown, for which professors from the University of Chicago and from Columbia University have requested further investigation because the risks are unknown and potentially dangerous. And most people just seem to trust that if the TSA says these machines are safe, then that means they're safe. Well, how many other things have federal agencies told us we're safe that ended up actually having some damaging consequences?